After the first act of disobedience that stained the earth, the firstborn Cain, embittered, carried a heavy burden, expelled from the divine presence. He headed for the barren lands east of the primeval garden. There, he built a settlement and named it after his son, Enoch. But this was not a dwelling built on truth. It was born of pride, of deafening silence, of a desperate attempt to conceal a stained past. In this world devoid of connection, among stones and constructions, young Enoch grew up. He observed in silence, feeling an inner call for meaning, for something he himself couldn't name. What happens to a soul forged in civilization that has renounced its creator? How far does the weight of a name that carries the blemish of its progenitor extend? There's a hidden story behind the first human city. Enoch witnessed everything, and what he did with that perception can transform your understanding of the genesis of faith. Before we delve deeper into this journey, join our community, subscribe to the channel, and activate notifications. That way, you won't miss any of the profound and revealing narratives from the beginning. The firstborn, Cain, advanced through the arid land, haunted by the echo of his brother's blood. Even with the mark on his soul, he pressed on for his son, Enoch, envisioning a future that might not be solely punishment. On a solitary plane, he decided to build his city, not in the name of the sacred, but in the name of Enoch, his new beginning. The settlement grew rapidly with the help of other marked individuals, becoming the first civilization to attempt to live far from Creator. But something essential was missing. There were no altars, no prayers, only the absence of the divine presence. Enoch grew up amidst this construction noise, observing everything with keen eyes and long silences. His father was proud, but the boy felt an emptiness. From the surrounding hills, he saw the men like ants and wondered, "Father, why is the sky so silent here?" His father's answer was an even deeper silence. Enoch sought meaning, dreaming of a garden and an invisible presence. The city celebrated achievements, not life. Enoch perceived the absence and cried, feeling that the city, despite its name, did not fill his soul. The city grew in power and splendor, but its foundation was presumption. Young Enoch observed everything in silence, absorbing more than he understood. The sound of hammer blows was constant, like the pulsing of a heart made of stone. The city grew visibly. Walls rose, pillars ascended, towers began to pierce the gray sky. The firstborn's pride was palpable, spread like dust in the air. Men chanted songs of victory as their hands became dirty with clay and sweat. "We are conquering oblivion," he would say. "We are becoming eternal." But what became eternal was the echo of an unconfessed error. The firstborn walked the streets like a lord among men. Everyone revered him, not out of reverence, but out of fear. He distributed tasks with a firm voice, promised peace through strength, order through control. And while he built outwardly, something within him silently crumbled. It was as if, with each stone laid, he buried deeper what he did not want to remember. Enoch, now with keener eyes and surer steps, walked among the constructions, observing everything. His hands clasped behind his back, his brow always furrowed. He didn't say much, but he saw too much. His father pointed him out to others as an heir, as the continuation of a name that should be remembered. But Enoch didn't feel like an heir to anything, only an observer. And what he saw didn't bring him peace. There was a central square. All paths met there. In the middle of the square, a sculpture was being carved, not of a deity, not of a spirit, but of the firstborn himself, imposing with open arms, looking at the horizon as if the world were his. Enoch stopped before it. He felt the weight of the stone, the coldness of the image. He didn't see his father's truth there. He only saw an old desire to be remembered. perhaps even forgiven, but without repentance. At night, there was a feast. Men and women danced to the sound of drums and flutes. Lights ascended to the sky without prayer. Children ran among torches. The firstborn raised his voice. This is the city of freedom. Here there is no guilt, no judgment. Here we are masters of our destiny. The crowd responded with shouts. Enoch stood in the background, his face still. Something in his chest tightened, as if the city was being built in the wrong place, on absence, on denial, in the silence of his tent. He drew symbols in the dirt with his fingers. He tried to understand what he felt. One night, he had another dream, a vast field, trees whispering in the wind, an invisible hand extended towards him. But as he tried to touch it, he was pulled back by the sound of stones being piled one upon another, suffocating the garden in his dream. He woke up breathless. The next morning, Enoch walked along the city limits. There he found men forging weapons, not for protection, but for domination. We will expand, they said. Others will come. We need to be ready. He asked, what if they don't want to bow? The answer was silence, or perhaps the clang of sharpening blades. He returned to the hill. From there, he looked at the city. It was beautiful, strong, rich, but there was no beauty at its foundation, no truth. It was piled pride, disguised pain, glory without purpose. A tower erected against the sky, and not towards it. Beside him, wildflowers grew, fragile, ignored by those who passed. He observed them for minutes, perhaps because they were simple, perhaps because they demanded nothing more than to exist. Enoch closed his eyes. Something is wrong, he whispered. And in that whisper, for the first time, something within him began to stir, like wind among forgotten trees. Enoch begins to feel the absence of something he cannot name. His gaze upon the city reveals more than the adults around him can see. The sky was pale, as if tired of watching men. In the distance, the constant sound of construction mingled with the hoarse singing of the workers. Enoch walked through the streets of the city that bore his name, a city that was growing, but which he felt increasingly distant from. Still a boy, with thin shoulders and bare, dust-marked feet. Yet there was something in his eyes that unsettled the adults, a gaze that seemed to see through the stones, the forced smiles, the speeches of glory. Enoch didn't speak much. He preferred to listen to feel. Sometimes he would stand motionless before the unfinished structures, watching men hastily erect columns and towers, as if time were an enemy. Other times, he would lie in the shadows of the buildings and look up at the sky, searching for signs that never came. He felt the weight of something invisible, an emptiness he couldn't name, but which dwelled in his chest like a living absence. The firstborn watching from afar, with uneasy pride. He's different, he would tell the elders. He carries within him the mark of the new world. But the firstborn didn't know that the new world for Enoch was strangely old, full of repetitions, of pains disguised as empty celebrations, a city made to remember, but which forgot more each day. There was an old man in the city. They called him Lemuel. He worked molding clay, always with dirty hands and a low voice. Enoch liked to sit near him in silence, just to watch the shapes emerge from his worn fingers. Why do you never build anything that lasts? Enoch once asked. Lemuel smiled with his missing teeth. Because everything that lasts too long starts to think it's eternal and forgets who molded it. The answer stuck in the boy's mind. At night, Enoch would hide among the willows near the dry stream. There, he felt something different. The sound of water that no longer flowed, the rustling of leaves that still swayed. It was as if the place held memories of a time before the city, a time when names had not yet been imposed, men still knew how to listen. He dreamed of gardens, of soft voices calling his name, not the city's name, but his own, as if there was someone who truly knew him. He would wake with tears and a question that grew without an answer. Why don't we seek him? One morning, passing through the central square, he saw children playing near his father's sculpture. They ran between the stone legs, shouting, laughing, stumbling. One of them fell, scraping a knee. She cried, looked up, and instead of running into the arms of a living man, she knelt before the cold image of the firstborn and embraced its base. Enoch stopped motionless. The child sought comfort in a statue, in a memory, in a symbol that didn't hug back. Something inside him screamed, but without sound. He ran to the mount, climbing quickly, stumbling on the stones. When he reached the top, he fell to his knees, his eyes fixed on the opaque sky. If you are there, why are you silent? The wind blew gently. Nothing else. On his return, he crossed paths with his father. Where were you looking for what you say doesn't exist? Enoch replied, not in anger, just with an ancient weariness. The firstborn frowned. Here we build with what we can see, touch, dominate. We don't live by ideas. Perhaps that's why we are empty, the son whispered. His father did not reply. He walked on. That night, as the city slept and the torch fires flickered in the streets, Enoch sat alone on a rooftop. He watched the comings and goings of those who still worked, those who built, those who fled the silence. He hugged his knees and stayed there watching, the child's gaze lost between pride and a longing for something he had never seen, but still recognized. The firstborn is trapped in a time he refuses to bury. As the city grows, he walks like a shadow, haunted by memories of his fallen brother. One night, the smell of ancient blood leads him to relive the moment of his transgression, the argument with Abel about their offerings, and the unforgettable sound of the stone. Waking up gasping, he feels the earth murmur beneath his feet. The voice of the blood still cries out. Despite his efforts to occupy himself with the city, everything seems fragile, corroded by an invisible guilt. Enoch observed his father, noticing his trembling hands and his averted gaze. He confronts the firstborn. What haunts you? He cries out to you. One night, the firstborn goes alone to the field, sits, and hears not a voice, but the weight of the memory of spilled blood. He acknowledges, I was marked, but I was never forgotten. From a distance, Enoch sees his father kneeling, witnessing the man who built a world to forget, being remembered by the very earth. In that silence, something begins to crumble. The firstborn city never stopped, but for Enoch, the noise only accentuated a suffocating silence, an absence of divine response. Night after night, he stared at the starless sky, asking himself, why doesn't he speak? While his father and others erected idols and celebrated earthly power, Enoch felt his soul wither, seeking a purpose he couldn't find in the city's vanity. He wandered through forgotten alleys, where he cried for a longing he didn't understand. There, he found an old, sick man, forgotten by everyone, who summarized the city's emptiness. Because I was forgotten by everyone. And by him too, perhaps. This revelation tightened Enoch's chest. On a night on the mount, he knelt and silently cried out for the one he only heard of as a myth. My father built a city with another name, and I just wanted to hear the silence, he whispered, feeling the absence respond with a tremor. As he descended, he saw the emptiness in the eyes of those laughing in the square, an emptiness he now recognized in himself, and which, finally, was beginning to transform into something more. Cain's city, though grand, was to Enoch a glittering void. Before the council, he challenged his father. stating that the city was just stone trying to bury the sky. The tension between them was palpable, and the city walls now seemed to separate them. In a confrontation in the central tower, Enoch accused his father of building to escape guilt and the cry of blood, revealing the emptiness that the work could not fill. Cain, though wounded, recognized the truth in his son's words. From then on, they barely spoke, while his father continued to build. Enoch sought answers within himself, ascending the mount and yearning for a voice in the silence. One day, he questioned his father about his willingness to defend the city, even if it was made only of pride, and about the silence of sacred. Cain responded with pain that the sacred only spoke with Enoch now. That night, Enoch wrote symbols of forgotten language, seeking a path back to what was lost, until, without warning, he departed for the desert, leaving Cain on the tower, watching the city that bore his son's name, but no longer his soul, while Enoch walked closer to the sacred. Cain's city, despite its material grandeur, was a spiritual ruin. Its vibrant streets, now deserted, reflected the emptiness in the hearts of its inhabitants. Crowded markets and well-built houses did not conceal the void and the absence of soul. Progress was an illusion, built on vanity and without a true foundation. After months of searching in the desert, Enoch returned and confronted Cain, who proudly observed his work. Enoch declared that the city was vanity without the Creator, a disguised ruin. Cain, lacking the strength to debate, heard from his son that the city had no soul, built only for pride. Enoch pointed to the desert, where the sacred awaited, affirming that true construction was born of faith and not of stones or gold. Cain looked at his son with sadness, unable to accept the truth that his grand city was dead inside, while Enoch walked away toward the mount, where his soul yearned, leaving his father to contemplate his hollow creation. Enoch could no longer bear the city, feeling an inexplicable emptiness and longing. Every night, visions of the lost garden invaded him, a place of peace, lush nature, and a sense of fullness that vanished at his touch. These intense dreams revealed the futility of seeking wealth and power in the city, which became increasingly oppressive and empty. As he gazed at the artificial river, his father Cain's words resonated. "What do you want, Enoch? To abandon everything." Enoch realized he needed to go beyond the city and its vanity. On top of a hill, in deep silence, he cried out. The vision of the lost garden returned, more vivid, and with it, the certainty that the eternal has put eternity in their hearts. With tears and a new understanding of the weight of the eternal, Enoch knew he could no longer remain in the city. The journey would be arduous, but the call of the lost garden was undeniable. With a heart full of uncertainty and hope, he descended the hill and began his search for what was lost, knowing that the answer lay beyond human constructions, in the silence of the desert. Cain's city began to be enveloped by a growing shadow, and the unsettling murmurs of the wind announced a flaw in its foundation. The elders, once pillars of authority, began to question the firstborn's pride. Enoch perceived the echo of his own search in the elders' doubts, understanding that the city's magnificence hid an empty soul. In a nocturnal meeting, the wise Levi confronted Enoch, admitting that the city grew in stones, but not in faith, and that the land felt abandoned. Enoch understood that the city was sick, destined for disintegration. Another elder, Simon, asked what to do, and Enoch replied that they needed to seek something beyond what was built by man, something that came from above. Despite their fear of Cain, Enoch urged the elders to be courageous and break the silence. He knew that a silent revolution of questioning was being born, and that true construction would not come from human hands, but from the hand of a still unrecognized creator. Cain's city could not be saved, The future resided in those who dared to question. Cain's city, a reflection of his arrogance, had become unbearable for Enoch. With a heavy heart, he departed for the desert, seeking the invisible, something beyond what the eyes could see. As the city disappeared and solitude enveloped him, Enoch discovered profound truth. Faith didn't need visible evidence, but flourished in the absence of everything. He felt the presence of the sacred, unattainable yet real, filling his emptiness. Remembering Abel, Enoch realized that, like his brother, he too had a cry in his heart. He would no longer return to Cain's prison. His journey would be guided by faith and an inextinguishable flame in his chest. In the desert, under the spectacle of the stars, he understood that true construction was not of stones, but of faith and trust in the invisible. Without a doubt, Enoch took the first step of a new life, where the visible was not what mattered, and the presence of the sacred was his new reality. In the desert, Enoch's solitude transformed into a sacred experience. The earth beneath his feet and the wind seemed alive, revealing what lay beyond matter. He felt the presence of the sacred, not distant, but intimate and fulfilling. The weight of the past and the memories of Cain and the transgression dissipated, healed by divine grace. Enoch spent hours in meditation, feeling a profound peace he had never known existed. In a revelation of spiritual light, he understood that the sacred walked with him. This experience marked the beginning of a new journey. No longer a pilgrim, but a man in intimate communion with the Creator, his body and spirit united in harmony, and he found himself with a renewed purpose, free from the chains of the past. Anger converted into compassion for Cain, who still struggled in his blindness. In the desert, Enoch discovered that walking with the sacred was the true purpose of his existence, finding complete peace. Cain's city, once a symbol of pride, crumbled before his eyes. Empty streets and a painful wind reflected the firstborn's despair. With the departure of Enoch and many followers who sought something beyond, Cain realized that his civilization of sand was collapsing. His blindness turned into wrath, but he understood that he was powerless against the truth. The city was losing its soul. Servants and generals, with faltering voices, confirmed that Enoch was guiding them to the desert in search of what the city did not offer. Enoch's name echoed like a curse, revealing Cain's failure. The firstborn's fury was also against himself, for having ignored faith and the divine presence. Alone in his palace, Cain felt the loss of his purpose. His city, now a silent tomb, crumbled physically and spiritually. Abel's guilt and the venom of his stain corroded everything. Kneeling amidst the ruins, Cain finally understood that without the sacred, nothing remains. Human pride, however high it may rise, will be consumed by emptiness. Without light, without hope, only divine silence enveloped him as the city met its end. Thank you very much for joining us on this profound journey. If the story touched your heart and awakened your soul, don't keep it to yourself. Subscribe to our channel for more inspiring and transformative narratives. Turn on notifications so you don't miss any new chapters. Leave a like to show your support and share this content with friends and family who are also seeking something greater. Together, we can spread the light of faith and truth.